I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barron?
Here.
Mr. Christensen?
Present.
Mr. Farron?
Here.
Mr. Godbout?
Present.
Ms. Wapner?
Present.
Mr. Noonan?
Here.
Mr. Kofa?
Here.
Mr. Robbins?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Walter?
Here.
Mr. Plum?
Public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda additions or deletions. Is there anything anybody would like to add or remove? I've got nothing to change.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as written.
Is there a second? Support by Popa, second by Smith. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We got an agenda. Okay, moving on. We have Tim Stein and Greg Julian here from Casson and Cleveland Townships. Chet and I met with them briefly a couple weeks ago, and they are here to inquire about possibly purchasing some of the field at Miles Kimberly Park, the section across the road next to the Poor Farm Barn. So if you guys want to come up to the table here so we can hear you on the mic.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question before we go? You're talking about the hayfield,
Yep.
basically, that we've leased out. That was not put in perpetuity. Was that piece kept out of perpetuity when we put all the parks in perpetuity?
Couldn't tell you for sure.
That side of the road?
I'd have to look it up.
I was thinking of the same thing, but I think only part of it was and some of it wasn't.
Right,
Because remember he hayfield and plowed it and stuff, but it was still
yes,
kept.
yep,
But it's something to look up.
yep, okay.
That's a good question. I never even thought about that.
I don't know, Greg, did you look at the deed? Did you see if there was anything on the deed? Did you happen to do a deed?
No, but I do know that we have leased, forgive me, I was part of this board for so long and worked with all of you. It's nice to be back. It really is good to see all your faces, Charlie.
Long time no see.
Yeah.
Wrong side of the table.
I know there have been leases there in the past, for the hayfield lease, and there's lease, I believe there's lease in place right now with the Poor Farm.
That's leasing, but what about the deed for it has to be a park forever?
I'm not,
See, I know the 4-H part was not put in perpetuity, because I was very upset about that. It's like, well, we're going to, save all our parks, but we don't care about 4-H after a certain amount of time. So I know the 4-H portion was not, but it's a hayfield is the only part I don't remember if that went in or if we left that out also. So, all right, we'll just find that out.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, thank you for entertaining this issue. We're here just as part of an information gathering committee. Casson and Cleveland Township are members of 4 township fire departments: Cedar Area Fire and Rescue, Solon, Centerville, Cleveland, and Casson.
Do you have them, Lori, down as to who these
No, I don't.
fine gentlemen are?
If you just sign in somewhere, then I have the information, or if you have business.
Laura has it, yeah.
You've got it? Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Sorry.
But my name is Greg Julian. Those of you know,
Oh,
my
perfect.
face. I am Greg Julian, and I'm a citizen in Casson Township. I'm the Casson Township Supervisor. And this is Tim Stein.
I'm Tim Stein, and I would be the supervisor of Cleveland Township.
In our townships, those two, like I mentioned, are partners with Solon and Centerville Township and 4 township fire departments. We have a need for coverage on the western side of 4 townships. It's a large geographic area, one of the largest geographic coverage areas in the county for fire and emergency services. And the Maple City Station station on the west side of our coverage area is what we're talking about today in Cleveland and Casson Township. The boards have been discussing this issue. Tim and I are just doing some legwork and preliminary work on it. Problem, being in Parks and Rec for so long, I've always seen that as a great location for anything, whether it's the park, or the tennis courts at the park, the Four Farm Gardens, the hiking trail, you know, the golf range. It's just a great spot. And it's traveled fairly regularly. And in terms of ideal location for emergency services, it's in that spot also. This happens to be. And so that's why we're here, just to ask Parks and Rec to consider that option. We know it's ultimately the decision of the county board, but I'd be remiss, we would be remiss for not addressing this through the proper channels. And so again, there's been some private sales around the area, some really good locations near this spot. It's another ideal location to get to the citizens in Cleveland Township, up in the National Park, down in the southern Casson Township, and as well as from at the school. So again, that's what we're talking about, and that's why we're looking here. Private sales go fast, they go quickly. And before we started entertaining those, there's a couple of new ones that have just come up. We've seen this piece of property there for so long. We've had people ask about that potential location for a fire station. So we thought we'd better make this inquiry first, so that no one can second guess, hey, after you buy this piece of land, 2 miles away, build this new station, and all of a sudden, people ask, well, did you ever check with the county, the open field with the county? So that's what we would like to do. It's a great spot for our station. And so I called Jeff to inquire on it, and he told me the proper channel would be to discuss it with Casey, see if there is some initial support to bring it to the board, the Parks and Rec board, through the Miles Committee, and that's essentially what we're doing. Tim and I are here to field any questions, but really we're just here to essentially present the subject to this Parks and Rec Commission in a proper manner, and have you folks spend time evaluating it, either as a commission as a whole, through the Miles Committee, and go from there. And if there's anything else, I just wanted to mention those things to you, but please, if you have any questions regarding it.
Greg, I'm roughly familiar with the location. How much of that whole field are you talking about?
I believe
Potential?
It's a major piece. We would be interested in purchasing 5 acres or less, probably five acres. I think if you do a proper layout of it in terms of what we need for a building, for station, for parking, some additional room maybe for training and maneuvering. You're talking close to 5 acres. We pinpoint that and come up with a specific number, not to exceed, the commission's wanted, but that's kind of what we're talking about.
Well, that answers my question at the moment, is roughly half of that,
Yeah.
that broader space.
Yeah, and it would be, wherever it was most advantageous to put the building, if it was right on the main road, or on the side road, probably closer to the main road, I think, immediate access would be that location, so it would be like the southwest corner. I was told Mr. London, there's some mapping that could be done, photos and stuff that we could eventually get if necessary, just to show it a little bit clearer. Yeah.
Go ahead, Doug.
I'm the chairman of the Miles Kimmerly Park Committee, and I'm a little possessive of all the acres we have there. So I'm a little reluctant. I sympathize with you wanting to have an emergency service building there. First I thought it was emergency service, now it's a full service fire station.
Correct. That's
Correct, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the trucks and everything else.
Yeah.
I would hope you would find another place other than the parks, because the parks have a limited number of acres. We only have 3 parks in the whole county. Miles Kimberly is the largest one. That area is not overutilized right now because it's lended out and used for farmland and whatnot, but for future generations, future use, I would think we have plans for lots of things at Miles Kimberly, and I'm sure we would find good use for those acres that you want. It could be configured, I want to be, understanding about your cause and everything, but it just seems like out there somewhere there's desirable 5 acres for you to put a fire station up on that'll serve both your township's purposes. And so my initial reaction, and I try to be understanding and receptive, but you come to the Parks Commission and we're possessive of the acres we have. We don't have that many. Nobody's coming around and giving us more acres. And for you to take it away is kind of, and then again, if maybe you can't anyway, because if it was given in perpetuity, then you can't anyway. So I think looking elsewhere is a good option for you, in my opinion. But I'm only one vote.
Go ahead, Rick.
I guess I'm going to come in from about 10 different areas. I can't agree with Don. We're limited to what we have for acreage. But I also look at, we have a lot of sporting events there. People do get hurt. Also, you're going to have a fire department that's pretty much occupied 24/7. So they're kind of keep an eye on our park. So far, we've been lucky as far as vandalism, but you never know what's going to happen. I go back to the Poor Barn Committee. We're looking for a parking lot. If we were to do this, we could incorporate our parking lot with you guys for the Poor Barn. I guess I'm trying to think down the road, because sometimes I think as a commissioner, as a committee, we always think of today. And I know I talked to you, Greg, and we don't agree on it, but if you're going to build a fire barn there, I'd like to see you look at putting your township office there too, because you guys are going to need one someday. And let's start thinking down the road. I know, but we got to start thinking ahead. Why house 2 units and heat and utilities when we can think of the future and have one building right there? I guess the other thing that concerns me is who would own it. It's in your township, but as we all know, fire departments come and go. So where does the property go when, eventually maybe your township will have your own fire department, station. So we got to think down the road too. Are you going to have it all to yourself, or,
Well, the practicality of it, of anybody, any township in our 4 townships owning their own fire department is very, very slim. We need the support of the other 4
as of,
townships.
right.
And so for Cleveland to say they want to fund and support their own fire department, fire hall.
I understand, but we're talking 2022. What about 2040? 2030? We don't know.
Absolutely.
And that's why I want you, if we're going to go forward with this, I'm only one vote too, but, I want you to look at the whole picture here and look at your township office. And, it could work. If we, as a board, if we approve it, and it goes to the big board and if they approve it. But let's start looking at the whole picture, not just today.
I got 2 questions. I'm not against it either, and I like this idea. I'm not sure 5 acres is big enough because there's stuff and whatever. But what's your timeline and stuff? Would you like something done so that you can go back to your townships by this fall, this winter, putting it on a millage, or what?
Actually, all we're looking for at this point in time from this board is if there's some tacit interest in possibly allowing us to move forward. We're looking at this as a potential site. If we didn't want to discount it, and we wanted to make sure there was some interest before we delve into the private sector on the other pieces of real estate that are available. Because this one seems to have some mutual benefit, as this gentleman just pointed out.
Right.
In having it located in that position.
And that part is big.
Close to the school, close to the nursing home. I mean, there are there are some benefits there. John, I'm thinking what we would really envision taking place, ideally for us, would be a 36-month option on the purchase of 5 acres. And I agree, 5 acres would be the minimum we really need to execute what was necessary. And if you didn't want to end up with a 5-acre dangling parcel, so to speak, we could certainly entertain the whole 10 acres.
I like the idea of it being sort of central with these north, south, east, and west roads. You can squirt north, you can go south towards you guys, school is right there, race towards Maple City, that kind of stuff. It's a good spot.
Yeah. And just as a little backdrop, when we put together the interlocal agreement and brought the 4 townships together in 2015, that was one of the major planks in our interlocal agreement, was coming up with a second fire station, a substation. In this instance, it would be a full-service substation. And if it was more accommodating, it could even become the main fire station. And the one in Cedar would become the sub-emergency service station.
Be the main place.
So, again, this isn't going to happen tomorrow. Our current interlocal agreement runs through 2025. So we're trying to get things in order now because of the underpinning, the financial and the documentation underpinning that it would take to put these pieces in place are going to take some time. It's undoubtedly going to take a bond issue. And those things don't happen overnight, as I'm sure you're aware. So that's what we're looking at. So we're trying to see if there is some interest on this board's part of issuing an option or even interest in selling the property at all. And if there is there interest in giving the Casson Cleveland Township entity a 36-month option on a purchase, and then determining a purchase price to attach to the option. I guess that's the option.
I like the idea of being a good neighbor, but if you came to us and said, we've explored all the other options, this is the only possible place we can put this station, I might change my mind. But until you do that, and I'm sorry, we don't have that much acreage. We just don't. The whole county doesn't have all the acreage. It's sitting there, it looks like it's not used, and it isn't, you're right. But it's still potentially viable for a lot of different projects that we're thinking about.
Rick?
What is, maybe Casey, what's the going rate per acre?
10 grand.
What are we looking at? Look at 5 acres, what are we looking at dollars? I mean, you've been looking at other property.
5-acre parcel?
Yeah.
50,000.
At least, if you're talking the corner.
Yeah, that would be minimum. I know there's
Yeah.
multiple pieces that have gone well above that.
We had
78.
We had 2 acres near us go for 32,000 last week.
We need to be,
I mean, another thing that we haven't looked at, it could be a substation for the sheriff department too, for the South End County.
Correct. Yeah.
Melinda?
I don't really have an opinion for or against. In my mind's eye, I'm trying to draw geographically what would be a nice halfway point between the 2 townships. And I would have to pull up a map and look. The only thing I was going to throw out there is, I know the gentleman behind had asked to purchase that field some years back, and Parks just said, no, we want to keep our park. So we have been asked in the past whether we would sell it or not, because,
when it comes to that field, there's been lots of interest in it in the past, and there's going to be continually more interest in it in the future. It's an open piece of real estate in a prime location, and not for housing developments necessarily, but we've talked about tennis courts, baseball fields, keeping it a hayfield, lots of interest out there. So this isn't something that's, somebody being interested in this piece of property isn't something new. This is,
That's where I was going, yeah.
so we need to just keep, keep our options open, I suppose, but that's my opinion.
How much property is with the foster care or the long-term care facility next door? How much are they renting, so to speak, or utilizing?
That lease is just for the drain field across the street. So it's just the drain field area, and that lease is coming due in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be,
And they
that
own
will be out of
everything.
there, and that, so that area of the park will become fully usable at that
Right,
point.
right.
Which is another large chunk of the park that's not being used. There's a lot of land there.
Where the building is, Michael, is not part of the park property.
Okay, all right.
Let me,
Okay.
let me just throw out, because we've been talking about just citing possibilities for a new Empire fire station. Because the building that they currently occupy is too small for the equipment. And we've been always talking about a 6 to 8 minute rule, that wherever you wanted to site it, you have to be able to get to every point that it's gonna serve within 6 to 8 minutes. And I think that's almost a perfect spot to get to any place, Maple City over on the east, or even beyond Maple City down to Tower Road, all the way over to Glen Lake for Casson there, and south and north. I think you can get to any place in 8 minutes. So as far as siting is concerned, it's almost the absolutely perfect spot to put it.
Should it go to committee?
That was kind of my thought, is maybe, we didn't, when we talked about this a couple weeks ago with Chet, we didn't really know which was going to be the best way to proceed. Send it to committee first, or bring it here first. And we decided to bring it here first so that everybody knows what's going on. We can all kind of weigh our options, and then if it needs to go back to committee, absolutely. But
Run it through a month's worth of committee and then back, and then this commission can wrestle with it.
And we can get some
once
questions
the-
asked, you guys can get some
Once
questions
the
asked.
committee runs through it and mulls it over, and then it comes back, and then the commission mulls it. Should we go that way, maybe?
I think that, that was gonna be my suggestion, but go ahead, Melinda.
Just looking at the county map here, it's not far off centrally located, so I kind of get what you're saying. But I agree with Don that before we sold off parkland, I'd like to see you explore any other options. You've got some of your more north-south roads, and even east-west would maybe be closer to right above Maple City, right north of Maple City in that area, perhaps. And I don't know, there may be a private landowner that would be glad to sell off.
Go ahead, Rick.
I mean, looking at the map now, being that it was public safety, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of areas you could look at. But to go to bat for you guys, I mean, I would keep it on one of your 6 roads. I mean, you got 616. I mean, you got fire trucks, EMS going out. You're gonna want your roads plowed in the wintertime. I mean, you can't be on one of these side roads. And so, I mean, you are looking in the right area to give you a plus.
Our snowplows are right there.
Right, and your snowplow's right out of Maple City, but, I mean, as long as you stay on your 6 roads, I think that's where your property's gonna have. I mean, yeah, there, as we talked, I mean, there's probably property everywhere there, but is it gonna be best for, the fire department, EMS or whatever, so.
And I'm sure they're looking at options, and like he had said, this was your very last one, and we tried 6 or 7 different places and can't, with no luck. But I'm sure they're still looking at other places.
I mean, I don't wanna see, like, going Castle Center Road, you find 10 acres there, and, that road only gets plowed. So we gotta, like, say, look at the whole picture here.
Well, I don't think these folks are here because this is just a freebie chunk of land. This is
Right.
a prime location for what they're looking to do. Obviously, there's other options out there. There could be any other option, but it's a prime location for what they're looking for. My opinion on it is I don't really have an opinion on it one way or the other. I'm partial to holding on to land. I don't like to see it let go by anybody, but this also is an instance that it's owned by the community basically, and then this also benefits the community as a whole and offers a life-saving option. So to me, it's on a scale, but kind of balanced in the air for me, but at this point, not yay or nay for me. I think it's only right to let Miles Kimmerly mull it over a little bit more, look at maybe sit down and look at your parks plan. What's that plan? What is that land planned to be? And look it over and come back in a month.
Should we determine if that land is encumbered before we even start a process?
Yes, that's the first step, because I didn't even think of that, and Chet didn't mention anything about it, but.
Would you, someone on your end, do that research
Yes,
for us then?
yes, Register of Deeds has it.
Yeah.
Because because Chuck has been aware of this.
That shut the whole thing down, right?
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
That would end the conversation.
But if that's not the case, then I don't know if I don't think this board's ready to take a vote on it today, but obviously. But let's answer some questions and put it back on the agenda for next month.
If I could make just one last thing about the aesthetics of that facility being right there. Again, it would be, it's not just for Cleveland Township or just for Casson Township. It would, to have that station there, it would serve the outlying areas. We have a NABUS agreement, which is an agreement to respond to all calls, if necessary, throughout the entire country. We are on the list to go to storms in Louisiana. We're on the list to go to wildfire in Colorado. And that's the broad sense of that. But again, so Cedar Area Fire and Rescue doesn't just service Cedar or Maple City. We serve outlying areas. So this station that would be in full view of the public, not only in Casson Township, Cleveland Township, but it would offer support for Glen Lake Fire Department. It would offer support in the far reaches of Cleveland Township, Elmira Township down in Benzie County, and over to Empire. Again, that's this location. But in addition to having all that additional coverage, you have this entity that the citizens fund ultimately, and in full view of the citizens. They could be proud of this facility just outside Maple City. That's not even as a sales pitch. That's as a citizen, having on that type of road, Rick, that is looks some added benefit of that too. The citizens see what their dollars are going for. Go ahead.
One other thing, I'm not talking about this piece of property, but by putting this new substation in, is that going to affect our residents lowering their insurance by having that new substation? They're going to lower?
Could lower the rating. That would be yet to be seen.
Is there natural gas there?
Yes. Are there any other questions?
I guess one, are you starting the process early? Because I thought I just heard a report where you were like 5 years out building a fire station in those two townships.
I don't believe we're starting the process too early, that's for sure. I mean, answer that question, I don't think it is too early. I mean, when we put together the interlocal agreement in 2015, we challenged the fire board and the fire chief to come up with a 5-year strategic plan. And in that 5-year strategic plan, the substation was there in that plan. So
For future. For future.
for future, yes. If anything, we may be behind the curve. But again, even if we were to start next week, we're still 3 years out. Administration. Our current interlocal agreement is up in 2025, and that would be an ideal time to have all these parts in place when we renew the interlocal agreement for townships. So to answer your question, no, I don't think we're premature.
Okay.
We're right on target.
Any other questions? I'll have this on the agenda again for next month. Hopefully Miles Kimmerly can have a meeting and invite you folks there if need be, or just put it back on the agenda for next month here.
And that's all we can ask at this point. And I'm glad you took the time today to listen to us and give the consideration we have. And I would be anxious to hear if there are deed restrictions encumbering that property, because if there is, then there's no need for any of this restriction. We'll just move right on.
And we discussed also, when we met with Chet, you guys had originally talked about a lease, but we had kind of determined that purchase is the only way to go, just because you can't have a building like that on a 50-year lease or whatever, so. Yeah, lease is out of the question, just so. Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you for coming.
Could we be excused? Although I am deeply passionate about the parks also.
And I love the fire department too. Thank you.
Don, I don't know if we've ever met before, but
It's not a zero-sum game with me, but I truly believe in my heart that you can find it's just as good a place and not take away our parkland. Because if I went to the Board of Commissioners and wanted to buy some parkland, I would have a harder time doing that than you will finding a place for your fire station.
Steve and I did it. We made it happen, didn't we, Steve? Veronica Valley.
Yeah. Greg and I went down and we made a pitch. Successful.
Okay, moving on the agenda, we'll move on to.
You bought,
Bought.
Yes.
you bought. That's a big
land
difference in
for
buying and selling.
park. Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Laurel Burhan here. We're going to move her up so she doesn't have to sit through the rest of our meeting.
Okay, so I think each of you have a page I prepared about multi-flower.
Yes.
I think there's a few people that might not have been introduced to this yet.
Page 15 and 16 of your packet, which you should have.
So,
I'm gonna need one.
Anybody else? I've got 2 packets left.
I need one time.
Somebody can pick.
Thank you.
so just briefly, Michigan monkey flower is an endangered plant. It grows only in very specific habitat, which we happen to have here around Glen Lake, just a portion of Glen Lake. And then it exists in approximately 16 other known sites throughout our region heading up to the Mackinac Straits. So as far as has been identified at this point, it's the only place in the world that this plant lives. So it's quite an honor to have it at Old Settlers Park, and we've been in the process of protecting it, recovering the habitat for the last, oh boy, I'm going to say probably 12 years at least. I've been involved with it for the past 10 years. So on the front page, the front there's just a little picture of it, a brief description of how to identify the Michigan monkey flower, the habitat that it grows in, and on the back then we have a status update. It's doing quite well still, thanks to the fact that we are continuing to maintain the site. If we stop caring for it, the competitive species will very quickly overtake the monkey flower and it will soon be lost. And one interesting thing is that in 2020, we cleared out a site close to the steps at Old Settlers that go down to the dock. there's a monkey site there that we cleaned out, and then last year, 2021, we moved transplants in that site. And they're doing well, and I fully expect them to be blooming this year. And I think that's an especially interesting place because people that come down the steps will be able to see it. There's also that great viewing platform up near the chapel and little fire pit area. But this new site by the steps gives people a chance to get a little closer to it. So that's one sort of new development. We're kind of working our way down to the northeastern end of the property. As we get the western end in pretty good condition, we're moving along. And this year I want to look for some more new sites that could be cleared out and receive more transplants in the future. So the proposal for 2022 is that basically we keep on caring for the existing sites, and then as I just said, look for new areas that can be developed to receive transplants. The proposed project funding remains the same. There's 2 neighbors and myself that partners with this project to give donation $480 each entity. The Glen Lake Association is contributing now, and the county has the opportunity to be part of it as well. I think it's a pretty unique collaboration between local residents, business, Glen Lake Association, park, the county. And as usual, the work that I do to keep it going is keep the monkey flower going is basically just a lot of pulling out competitive species, the jewelweed, the Canadian thistle, mints, and various grasses that come in, and just keeping them at bay to keep the monkey flower from getting choked out.
Laura?
Yes.
You've mentioned in the past a colt's foot.
Colt's foot, yes.
Have you have you successfully gotten rid of that one, or is it still bothering you there?
It hasn't been there for a couple of years. I would say probably 4 or 5 years. It still is at other parts of the shoreline. We're still keeping track of it.
Okay.
But not at Old Settlers. It's been on there for the last several years.
Good news.
Yeah.
Okay, and if I may ask one more. You mentioned 16 other places. Are they managed similarly to what we are doing, or are they privately managed? Are they managed, would be my first question.
I'm not familiar with all of them. I know that one of them is near Pulston, where there's a research station with Michigan State, I believe. Yes, Michigan State.
Okay.
So there's a population there that recovery has just begun. Pretty exciting, Maple River population.
Okay.
So, and to be honest, I'm not sure about the other sites, but I do know that the sites that we care for around Glen Lake are rated as the highest quality when the botanists rank the different sites. Ours is the highest quality because of the care.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Oh, I forgot to mention another exciting development from last year was that a little video was made about the Michigan monkey flower, which I think was shared with you all. Joe Vandermeelen, a local videographer, focuses on making videos about different environmental issues. So there's a link written out in your handout. The name of his organization is Nature Change, and so you can just type that into Google and look for Nature Change Michigan monkey flower, and that will take you right to the video. If you want to see this work in action and learn more about it, it's a good little, I think it's only 7 minutes or something like that, so good introduction.
Go ahead. Yes, I was wondering, the sites that you have, are you familiar with any of the sites on the Tart Trail?
No, sites for...
For the monkey flower? Yeah.
No, I'm not.
It's quite prolific in this one area, and I always pause to admire it, and it's just abundant. And of course, it's a low-lying area. I didn't know if you'd be familiar with it or not, but a lot of mature trees and shaded all the time. And it's got a major seep coming through there continuously. So I just thought I'd give you a heads up on that. When I'm on the trail, I'm not concentrating on the roads. It's just on the trail. So
You don't know more specifically
I
where
can,
it is.
I bicycle it regularly and I'll identify what roads and I'll give you a little help
I
there.
would love to know more about
Okay.
that.
And then there's another site where it's alongside of either Casban or Kasan, one of the two. And there's plenty there, but like you're talking about, there's a lot of other plants trying to interfere with that. But at this other site on the tar trail, there's no interference whatsoever. It's just a plethora of monkey flower.
Okay. Well, I would love to,
I never knew what it was called until recently, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I saw patches of it on the south side of 616 between Cedar and Maple City.
There is a yellow flower that grows in the same exact spots as monkey. Yeah.
Yeah, what you're talking about along the road 616, that definitely is marsh marigold.
And maybe this is too, but it's a yellow, it's a thicker, dark leaf.
Yeah, that sounds like marsh marigold.
Yeah.
That's blooming now and lasts until like maybe late May, early June,
Okay.
latest.
Yep. By these pictures,
This-
I have a hard time identifying just.
Yeah, this doesn't really show you the scale.
Uh-huh.
So monkey flower doesn't come into bloom until like end of the first week of June, and then it will go through June, July, and flower very sporadically in August. And it is a much shorter flower much shorter plant than the marsh marigold. And it's a marsh marigold leaves are very big and bold. Monkey flower, it only gets like 8 inches tall.
The marsh marigold does, that tall, or the monkey flower?
It only gets-
Yeah, I think it's probably the monkey flower that I'm
I will-
seeing.
I'll come take a look.
Okay, I'll identify the site and then you can maybe check it out. I don't know. So
I know the one that you're talking along Casban Road, that's marsh marigold.
Yeah.
is it marsh marigold there? Okay, because I'm driving by and I see yellow.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're
Same thing
doing.
with me on 616.
I thought the exact same thing for a while, because my aunt owns some property on Bow Road that's just up from Glen Lake, and it's got a Seepy Creek swamp, and there's all this yellow flower in there.
Yeah.
She's got
We have some junior botanists on the group.
It took me a minute to figure it out, but I figured out what it was.
You gotta bring it to us so we can see it and identify it.
Well, maybe I should come, well, no, that's allowed. We should have a meeting at the park.
There you go.
In June, and then
Okay.
in July.
All right, okay, back to the business at hand.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Laurel?
Do we have any action we have to take?
Yes. There's a dollar amount here that is what we would pledge to support to continue the.
960?
Yep.
Then, I like it personally. I'll make a motion that we approve it.
I'll second that.
All those in favor of continuing the support of the monkey flower?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll keep it going.
Thank you, Laura, for what you do on this.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That out of your own pocket too.
Driven on this one issue, and it's good.
Yeah, well, if you're ever at Little Sutler Park when I'm there working, let me know.
Which is there a lot.
All right. Well, it's a nice motorcycle ride along there too.
Yeah.
Go to have a beer and a burger in Glen Lake, you know? Okay.
Okay, moving on to our, thank you, Laura. Meeting minutes, approval of the April 6th meeting minutes.
Move to approve as presented.
Your support? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to the financials.
Well, it's page 9.
Is there any questions for Scott?
So, Current,
I'll bring
current,
it up right now.
go ahead.
There's a $10,187 entry. I don't understand it. I'm working with Darcy on it. Previous financial director capitalized the repair of the governmental center's tractor. For about our budget. That's what that is.
So we're gonna take 45 minus 10 is 35,000, correct? We just spent how much on the curbs and gutters, 28,000?
I believe this 10,000 will come off.
You think it will?
Yes, because it was brought before the board as a maintenance department expense, but the person who was advising the financials wanted to come out first. And I'm not quite sure what the rationale is.
Okay.
But it really shouldn't be.
Well, we're in big trouble, we're already in the red if it stays in.
Well, there's no way, why would it be charged to the parks? The tractor goes everywhere. It's a county-owned, is utilized by the parks.
That's my issue with it. And I don't know why it would be capitalized in the first place, but that's, a whole other issue.
Right.
But it's not the parks. I haven't used that tractor in 2 years in the parks.
Right.
So we're 45 then, 45
Sounds
minus.
like a piece of equipment that ought to have an hourly billing rate.
Yeah, exactly. Any more questions for Scott?
Good man. Other than that, we'll staff.
Yeah. So we need a motion to approve financials?
Correct.
Also moved?
Supported by Smith. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Financials are approved. Okay, moving on to committee reports. Miles Kimmerly?
Yes, thank you. The first thing is the Barn Use Committee update. Can you take care of that, Casey?
Yeah.
I got to that meeting late.
We had the first meeting of the Barn Use Committee last week. Went really well. Pretty informal, just trying to get our feet underneath us. But one of the biggest tasks to tackle first is figuring out if the public can go in the barn, the insurance there, the liability, what updates need to be done to the barn to have the public in there, because if we can't get that done in a reasonable fashion, then that also limits the uses for that site. But in general, we were kind of all under the same idea of keep it simple, keep it basic use, mostly educational, hopefully. Try and educate people, one, about the poor farms and the way that they used to operate, and then also there's some partnerships already done with Glen Lake Schools through the garden itself and everything, but try to continue that maybe and try and get a teacher to maybe take a week to educate kids on agriculture in general, and then the poor farm and the historic value of all that. So that's kind of where we're at with it, just very preliminary, but.
Does the group that's doing all that we have the agreement with, do they have plans for interior use?
No, not at this point. Their whole thing was to save the barn, and they've done that essentially. They've reinforced the one wall that was weakening, had it painted, all that stuff. So we're at the point now where the saving part is done. So now they're looking at, the part of the contract was, or the lease agreement was to form this committee to find a use for the barn. So that's where they're at with it now. We're working towards it, but they don't have intentions of using it for anything at this point, other than what we develop as a use. Maybe the one topic that came up is kind of start collecting some from area farmers, whatever, more antique farm equipment, and use it as kind of a museum that's open a couple times a year or what have you, something like that.
I guess the one thing that we did come to agreement on was it will not be used as a wedding venue.
Yes, that's
concert hall or anything like that. non-commercial.
Yeah, very basic, limited use.
No neon lights or anything like that.
As far as the education goes, since you're thinking about the old farm implements, one of the things that would be great is to entail how this is all done, how people kept things cold, how people developed their food supply just from this farm that they would need for the whole year.
Yeah, and that we talked about those very same things, actually educating kids on how agriculture used to work and how it was more of a living than a job. Or
Right.
You did it to survive and to make a little money, but also mostly for survival.
Yeah, I think there's lots of implements, not only ones for use in the field, but ones like ice tongs and hay bale hooks and pulleys, the old wooden pulleys, and a variety of things, and show somehow how they used them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the only thing, except just a few updates on some things. We still have signage issues that are coming along, and Dave will talk about that. The grub shack is still there, Scott?
It is.
Still there, okay, enough said about that. No more further conversation about the grub shack.
I could give you a brief update on it real quick.
Okay, update, we'll go for
I
it.
did talk to Tim on Sunday. I told him that the checks are here. He said he has the folder in his truck now. He's getting closer. He wanted to know where your office was, so, yeah. So
I will believe it when I see it. Scott promised to call me in the middle of the night if it goes away.
I don't know how quickly he'll be there, but he said that
It's on the agenda.
Okay.
It's there, it's progressing. Having the folder in his truck is a big step.
My thought is if we don't talk about it, it might go away.
It means we're on the radar.
That's current.
Yeah.
The kiosk, I want to give you an update on that. I put a CIP in for that, and it came up to about $27.5 thousand. And that's okay, and I'm trying to fine tune some of the estimates, and I got a lumber cost that is good, I got a construction cost that is good. And
Kiosk, where the drinking fountain and all that stuff would go after we get rid of the grub shack.
Okay, yeah, next year, maybe.
And the reason I'm bringing it up is this price of 27.5, it's maxed out on the CIP, and it doesn't include painting, and it doesn't include electrical hookup, it doesn't include the water fountain or anything. So if we can kind of squeak some of that stuff through, or even the concrete slab through on this year's budget, if there's money left over, that'd be a great thing to do. The slab is like $4,000 if it's done well, they do $3,000 to $4,000, and the drinking fountain is $3,500, I believe, wasn't it, Scott? So just keep that in mind. That's the only reason I bring it up now. Okay, the paved loop, Michael, excuse me, and Rick are working on that. Dog park. Rick, can you give us an update on that letter that we saw last month from the Prisby family? They wanted to fund the dog park.
I want to say what letter?
Did you get a hold of them at all?
No.
Okay, I would give that to me, and I'll be happy to
I kind
follow
of
up
dropped the
on that.
ball because I think we didn't know which direction we were going,
Yeah,
so
I'll touch base with them though, just to
I didn't know if we-
keep them in the loop, okay?
I thought we would concentrate more on the trail than we were the dog.
Oh, yeah,
park.
for sure, but we still want to, they send a nice letter and they're offering to fund it.
Do you have a copy of that, Doug?
No, I never got a copy of it. Rick's the only one that has it.
It was emailed to us,
Anyway, yeah, I'll get that from somebody
Yeah,
anyway.
if you could make contact with them, I mean, if somebody wants to give us money, we should.
Absolutely, that's what I will call, I will definitely call them.
We're in
Thank you.
desperate need.
It might only be $1, but it might be $1,000, who knows? So I'm good at delegating, I guess. I'm just doing a little bit, but all the other people on this committee are really helping out a lot, and I want to acknowledge that. And Steve kind of keeps us on track and oversees things. He's busy with a lot of other things. I appreciate that. The finance thing is what I'm most concerned about. If there's money left over, think of some of the projects Miles Kimmerly can't get done this year, but we can do a piece of it maybe and get it done. Okay, and that's all I have.
Moving on to Old Settlers. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I would like to add one small thing. John and I met out at Miles Kimberly, and we went over because we're looking at getting a grant in the future for a trail that's accessible for the handicap. And so we met out there and walked the area that Scott had laid out for the pathway. We did consider some modest changes that would make it less challenging for the wheelchairs, but yet maintaining the same trail that Scott had laid out so that there would still be a challenge for those that want to go up a steeper slope and down a steeper slope, but then an offshoot from that so that the slopage, which is termed, and John would be much better at this than me, but the, excuse me, slope and cross slope would be accommodating to wheelchair access, which has to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 1 to 12 foot ratio so that they can make it up and down the hills. Anyway, we had a fun time weathering the cold and the rain out there, and we were saturated, but other than that, we managed to get out there and walk the entire walkway, which is great, Scott, good job. And then as part of this, we were considering coming off the parking lot that's up there and going into the woods and then maintaining a high slope for the wheelchair and then trying to maintain the 112 pitch coming down to the far corner.
That's where we had originally brought it, was up through the pines.
Yeah.
But they determined there was a lot of logging and stuff. That's
Yeah. Well, we actually came up with the same idea you did then. So we're okay. All right. So anyway, we walked it and looked it over and anything you want to add, John?
No, you did a good job. We looked at stuff. But basically, you're allowed the barrier feed not to exceed 1 in 12 pitch, not to exceed, if you're at the 1 in 12 pitch, not to exceed 30 feet in length before you have a 5 by 5 resting area. So that's pretty critical to that. But and it would be 7 feet wide. So there's two ways of traffic, somebody in a wheelchair or somebody running like that. And we made some interesting changes. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add something. Go ahead.
Looking at them, and I had an eye level that would help be able to determine that thing, because working with grades is, can be misleading in what you think a grade is as to what it really is.
You bet.
It probably helps.
Which we discovered.
So the eye level is going to help us.
Yeah.
That's why they came up with e-bikes.
It's just like to point out a great example of the ADA trail. It's Arcadia Bluffs.
I want to go do that.
And it's incredibly done, and it's way bigger in scope than what we're looking at. It's well worth taking a ride down there and checking it out. Go for a nice walk.
We'll have to hook up with you and take a look at it.
Yeah. Better directions.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
Really cool trail.
What's
Bikes down the road.
right? What's particularly good about this trail that we're all looking at is as you go along the parking lot, you have access making loop, and then the rest areas that John mentioned, that's also a requirement. And then as you come around, it's the transitioning between the woods, and then you got an open field, and then you're going along the road. And I was thinking, oh, that wouldn't be any good going along the road. Well, it's not so, because then you have the barn that you're passing by, and you have the ball fields and the soccer fields, and then you come upon the facilities that would be for drinking fountains and going to the bathroom and the likes of that. It'll be accessible for them also, and when we do that platform, it'll be wheelchair access from the back side and the front side. And then we slope up right along the edge of the soccer field rise, and we'd have to move, if we do what we were thinking of, move the posts that block, okay, and so that the cars couldn't enter the trail area. So those posts, or we would add more posts perhaps along that area, and then rise up and knock down that old maple tree that's losing big chunks anyway, that's on the corner there as you bed around the parking lot. There's a big chunk on the ground. Yep, and we just go across there as a crosswalk and then run along the pines like you said, Scott, and then enter the woods, enter the woods and then come out of the woods just a little ways down from that. But anyway, it's a nice area because you got all the little delights in rolling along. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions under Miles?
I guess a question. I did run into John Casbin at a basketball game, I think this winter, and I'm like, oh, hey, we were just discussing the drain field.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, kind of like, I understand you're on track with getting your drain field in, and he's like, yeah, suppose you guys would do an extension.
No.
So I'm like, John, I think you better move on. But it wasn't my place. I said, you better look into that, John. So.
I think we made that pretty clear that was not going to be renewed. And
Were they sent a letter?
We met with them in person.
You did,
Yeah.
okay.
Was that?
Like a year or two ago.
Yeah, it was at least a year. It was
So
before
I guess
COVID.
I don't think it was 2.
So I think it was 19. I don't think, we met in there and there was nothing up like a barrier.
So I say that because we may want to follow up on
We
that.
wanted to make sure they
Because-
knew.
Right. And he said, oh, we've got a plan, we're,
Some step system, because they were gonna go behind the building on a rise and behinds.
Might be worth an update just to,
Well, because this is April, he needs to
jingle.
line somebody up, and
well, he's gonna probably come back and try and do a squatters' rights thing or give some sob story that we have to renew a contract, but.
It was late 19, his dad had a Santa hat on.
Oh, okay. But, no, he had fair warning. It was a stretch to let him have the first lease, which probably wouldn't have happened if my grandpa was on that board, but, it was a stretch in the first place, and he's
Yeah.
been,
We should probably revisit that.
okay, I see it, that's why I.
He said that it would probably not work to have that field because they were talking about doubling the amount of beds they had. So
Yeah.
they'd have to come up with a new system anyway.
And it doesn't sound like that's happened, so.
I'm sure
I
it's
think-
not going to happen.
So anyway, it needs to be
Construction
followed up on.
costs and all
yeah,
that.
but Steve's right. We don't want to be surprised in a year from now or 6 months from
right.
now. So we should be
Yeah.
proactive and approach them and say, hey, listen,
Well, I
this is,
don't,
your
whatever
time
we need
is
to
up.
do, I'd probably revisit the issue.
It expires in 2023, right?
Right. In April 2023.
Okay.
I can ask Chad about maybe seeing the council to draft them something, letting them know.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah, something in writing.
Perfect. That'd be great. Good catch on that. I drove by there and thought about that a while ago, but completely has slipped my mind again.
A couple of days ago.
Okay, Old Settlers.
We met just ahead of this meeting. We have a couple of motions for you. We recommended that we approve the request from the Glen Lake Community Reformed Church, to use the park Saturday, July 9th, 2022. Same rules as applied previously. So,
Makes sense. Is that a motion?
that's a motion, yep.
Support.
Second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay, second motion was to hire Playground Boss, accept their quote of $8,410 to come in and, what's the word we use, to install the playground set at Miles Kimberly and at Old Settlers Park. In a
We'll
spot
take
that's
it. No, we'll take
outlined.
it.
Fire. Well,
that-
park.
We
Yeah.
can put it in that 5 acres that the fire department wants to take away from us.
That's
We have
what
use
we
for
should be doing, yeah.
Would that be a recommendation to the county board to waive the bid and accept it?
Well, if this has to go to the Board of Commissioners, we would recommend that we waive the bid. We haven't heard back from anybody else that has said, yeah, we can help you with that.
I
It's
think
just
it'll
we're
go,
hoping.
I think, well, it makes sense for them to do it because they sold us the equipment. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, but that probably should be the way the motion reads.
And would that strengthen their guarantee?
We talked about the warranty. It has to be built in a certain way to meet their warranty, and I
Exactly.
expect that that would help.
Yeah, it seems that if we're going to do the job, we would want to make sure that the guarantee was intact. And if we use somebody else or do it ourselves, then we might have problems with that.
Yeah. So that's also a motion.
Support.
Second?
All those in favor of the motion? Oh,
Would
go
you
ahead.
be clear on that motion again, though?
Move to recommend that we approve the $8,000 and some dollars for the company that we bought the.
To do the assembly?
To do the installation.
Thank you.
Just as a point of information, how much was the purchase price for the merchandise?
13?
Tw-
How much was the purchase price of the
Oh,
equipment?
20.
20.
Yeah, by the
13,
installation in my mind. Yeah, 13,000, yeah.
A little over 13,000.
How much?
A little over 13,000.
13,000, so we're paying 8,000 more just for the installation.
Mhm.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
unfortunately.
need it, I guess.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Okay, we have one more motion, and that was to purchase, what'd you call the chips?
Engineered wood.
Engineered wood chips from Deering Tree Service, 60 yards for, is it $2,010?
$21.60 with delivery.
$21.60 with delivery. Thank you.
Was there an ask for a donation from them?
I think these are
From
the,
Deering, they have to purchase this.
yeah.
They,
these are-
that's right, they have to buy it
Yeah,
from somebody else.
Yeah, that's what we said. Otherwise, we'd get all we wanted, I'm sure, from Deering, but yeah.
Okay.
How are we gonna handle this? Do we have to, it's over 2,000, does it have to go county board?
We have 3 quotes.
I can check with them. See if that's something that's-
Yeah, ask him. 'Cause I
So
don't
the
think it's an
motion would
emergency.
probably read, we recommend to the
As
county
it's over
board.
two, probably, if it's under two.
Probably both
Yeah,
of
the
these.
motion.
Actually, all three of these motions might, right?
Where are they gonna put the chip?
We've got the 3 quotes, so we should be golden.
And this is the lowest of the three.
To recommend to the county board to accept
Is
the
the,
quote.
is the option still under 2,500? Is it under 2?
It has to be, if it's over 4, it's gotta go up for bids.
Right. Okay, but it has to be under 2 to just,
Right.
So we have that.
oh, I was thinking it was 25. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Isn't that displayed?
Okay, so I think, yeah, that was a motion and we had support, right?
Second.
Steve supports.
Support.
Okay, all those in favor of buying some, Dave, sorry. Oh, All those in favor?
Ready to say yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
That's it.
I have one quick thing. My cousin David called me last night and they had an Old Settlers committee meeting last night. They were wondering about getting porta potties again. They're planning to do the picnic this year. Porta potties, and then there was no power to the gazebo last year. Have we fixed that?
No.
Okay, all right, just bringing it up again. I don't,
Do they want to roll off again?
yeah,
We did last.
we didn't well, I don't know yet, because I don't know if the Masons are doing the meal or how that's gonna work. Because we didn't get it last year because there wasn't, the Masons didn't do it, so we didn't have all of
Also,
our.
we have food trucks.
Right,
That's
yeah,
right.
food trucks came. So I'm hoping that we're going to do the meal again, but I'm not,
Just let me know.
yeah. But he didn't mention that last night. I was going to ask him what the thoughts were, but it hasn't been brought up at our lodge meetings yet either, if we're gonna do the meal.
As much notice as possible.
Okay,
What would it take to get the electrical system working there?
It's probably gonna be very expensive.
Okay, and the problem is what?
Probably trees,
Okay.
going through the wires.
Well, the reason I ask is, Deering's is actually pretty generous with helping out. If it's trees, I've watched them do cemeteries just on their own to help out, clean away the trees that were infringing and
It's just a
maybe,
root that broke the line.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
This is all buried, right?
And it was probably never sleeved.
No.
It's just a
Right.
wire.
All right, so there's no conduit.
Yeah.
So it needs to be trenched.
so would it be helpful to get somebody to give a bid so that we could look at what it would cost and to repair it?
I know a really good electrician that's gonna be your son-in-law soon.
There we
Does a lot of
go.
that type of work.
Okay.
Maybe that'll work.
He fixed the shaft.
Did he?
Cool. So
I wish,
can we,
uh,
do we need could you follow up with that, just to check and, okay?
It doesn't have to be him, I was just teasing.
I know a bunch of electricians. So.
Yeah.
Right.
I know, I was trying to narrow it down.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
It's too far out of our service territory. Otherwise, I would have seen if Cherryland Electric would, like maybe donate the trenching or something. But I wonder if consumers would trench it for us. Do they do any
I
charity
wouldn't count
work
on
at
it,
all?
they take forever too on anything.
It'd be worth asking.
Well, I hate to give myself words too.
Melissa, can you check on it?
I don't know how to contact.
Uh-huh.
He sees that building's gone.
Or Melinda, excuse me.
It's okay.
Might be
You can check
time.
with-
Be able to buzz over there and
I know
go
Mr.
truck
Rowland.
it.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's
See
look
how it
into
works
it.
out.
It's worth an ask.
Okay, I just,
My neighbors rented a trencher for $250 so they can put in the cable,
well,
because of how much the cable company wanted to do that part of the job. And they said, we'll just do it ourselves.
Yeah, Grand Traverse Rental on Airport Road, it's
$250 in
very
a
reasonable.
day's worth of work.
If you have tree roots.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
well, that,
Can get into it.
okay, anything else under Old Settlers?
Nope.
Moving on to Veronica Valley.
Okay, we bring to this group one recommendation, and that is that the full commission support the application for tribal 2% monies that have been developed for us by Mr. Bill Watson and his Youth Works operation. Bill succeeded in getting this grant 2 years ago, did not succeed last year. Reapplying, and the work principally is for invasive species control removal.
Okay.
So our committee recommends that this group vote approval or support for that application. That process begins next week. I expect, Stephen, I'll talk, but I expect I'll be here on Tuesdays. Executive committee to express our support to,
Is this that Youth Works group?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you got is that your motion, or do you want to?
I move that the Parks and Rec Commission vote support for, recommend to the full county commission our support for this 2% application as, it's developed by Bill Watson and Youth Works, and as it's stated in the application.
For invasive species.
For invasive species removal at Veronica Valley Park.
Laurel's got it. Is there support?
Support.
All those in favor of the motion?
Discussion?
Oh, sure.
Says what dollar amount are you asking for?
50,000.
Well, if you look at page 19 of the packet, and that's the beginning of that. And the very next page, 20, they are going to ask the tribe for $22,000 with a total budget of 50, and they're not asking the county for funding. They just want to try and get funding from the tribe to add to this.
So the request is actually for half of the 50,
I see, didn't see that.
a
sorry.
little less than half. Okay. Bill has other, I frankly haven't worried about some of the details because he has so much experience putting these applications for support of his work crews, putting those together. he has other sources for those matching funds. He's not asking the county for any additional funds. So my motion again is that this group, are we recommending then, Laurel, to the full county commission that they support this application? So,
Steve had support? Is there any-
Support, yes.
Support,
absolutely.
yeah. Any other questions? All those in favor, say aye.
aye.
All those opposed?
Thanks for your work on that.
Well, really, it's been, I've worked with Bill Watson since he was back with Seeds, and have come to really appreciate the work he does. Bill's done the work. I've just kept in touch with him. But he's done the work in putting the application together. And frankly, the main reason we have any hope of getting, winning this award from the tribe is because of Mr. Watson's relationship, previous relationships with the tribe. He has done a lot of work supporting their youth, and they appreciate it. So it's his relationship that is the strength of our application here.
Anything else under Brown?
Yes. Don said something about signage. I don't have anything to add because I haven't taken care of signage. We will move on that. We have the signage. You've seen this. We've approved the signage for both Miles Kimberly and Veronica Valley. I have yet to move on getting that actually printed up, but I will. And the final thing from Veronica is this is simply informational, we had an informational meeting today with Brian Price and Ron Rymick from the group associated with the Leelanau Lake Association and their work on mitigating, preventing Eurasian milfoil in the lake. And the possibilities, the discussion was about the possibilities of using our ponds at Veronica, or a pond anyway, as a test bed, making it available for them to try out various mitigation techniques. The first thing we came away with in terms of any action is we need a thorough assessment of the aquatic plants that are in those ponds. And that's the step we will be moving on next.
Is the focus going to be chemical use or what are they thinking?
No, their focus is not chemical use. It's non-chemical control methods.
Mechanical.
Mechanical.
Canvas things.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they also are looking at some other techniques, but they are not chemical treatment.
Super.
We are waiting, we've not made any decision, we haven't even looked at a need for any more treatment this year because we haven't had warm enough water to see enough growth coming along. But it's this assessment of the aquatic plants that's the next step. Last thing, Kids Fishing Day Committee had their first meeting. I don't know, what day is today? I guess it was just Monday of this week. We have 2 tools for manually opening up, cutting away weeds in small areas, the razor system, the cutting bar, and the rake. The fishing committee indicated that as things progress towards the last day of June, this year's fishing day is the 26th of June. As we see how growth is occurring in the ponds, we may call upon one part of that committee to provide some manpower in cutting open some areas if we need to do that for fishing access. Otherwise, the fishing day is going on as it has in the past. They didn't make any changes to the plan. Scott's on top of the mowing that's required. The principal additional mowing with that event is the overflow parking area, but Scott's been doing that. He's ahead of that game. So all of that is moving along as they have done it before.
What's the date again?
26th of June, last Sunday in June, I believe it's the 26th.
June.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Anything else?
What time is that?
Thank you.
Starts at 11 in the morning.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Anything else for Veronica? Questions?
Along with milfoil, it was an interesting discussion. With bits and pieces available of the milfoil at the pond and at the lake, there's some potential for fishermen or fishing kids to be passing it back and forth between the lake and the pond and the pond and the lake. So we're going to probably generate some signage that will tell everybody that comes and goes what they have to do to not pass it around.
Be great.
He was asking, when did you notice it? Well, it's always been weedy. I don't know.
Imagine some little kid's got a fishing line, it's got a piece of the milfoil on it, he brings it to some other lake and throws it in the lake.
Yeah.
Right, well, that's the thing, I mean.
And that's what the
They
signage
should know
will
that
speak to.
this is a problem.
Yeah. The signage will speak to being clean when you come and being clean when you leave.
Laurel?
Why did you add the other thing that they thought of possible sources of weed contamination? The animals.
Oh, that was, yeah, especially muskrat, and Mr. Remick was saying that muskrats are always, whenever you see a muskrat, it's dragging some vegetation with it. And the muskrats from Veronica probably are the same muskrats that make it to the lake. I mean, the swamp is there, I don't know, there is potential for that too, so it's kind of interesting.
More reasons to trap.
Darn critters.
This all came about because of my discussion with one of the Fishing Day Committee members, well, Lonnie Rodemaker, the head of it, who thought the discussion going on with the mitigation group from the bigger lake, that they were focused on Veronica as a real particular problem. And that's not the case. They are really expanding their watchdog work to all outside possibilities and connections, and not anything specific about Veronica. But there is an opportunity that may arise for both of us to benefit. They spoke of some, I think it was Grand Valley University, some student program that may get involved. Perhaps they can use the ponds for some of their educational work rather than the more difficult to access bigger lake, et cetera. But that's all, this was the front end of the discussion, and the next step will really be for us to be watching what grows and to get an actual survey by somebody who can identify the plants. I learned today that one of the algae that I thought I had correct from the Savin text of a year ago, apparently, I'm pretty sure they told me the name that I'm using, but it's not the right one. So I learned that today. So there's things we need to learn, and that'll start with this survey. And there's some steps that we identified to get that going.
Any other questions? Moving on to public comment. I don't see anybody. Commissioner comments?
I just have, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I hate to bring up the grub shack again, but if the grub shack is still there, we don't have any water for the soccer players and the ball players. So we have to develop a plan B until the grub shack has gone away. Because even after it goes away, it takes a while to get the water. Correct, Scott?
Right.
So I'm asking you to help develop a plan B for water. I don't.
Could, instead of putting it on Scott, how about we just make sure that the people that are going to be coming there are
Well-
aware of the lack of water and to bring their own water?
And it might be just a signage that says that. That's
Exactly.
all it has to be.
Okay. All right, yeah, because,
Yeah.
Each team will bring their
Okay.
big Coleman cooler.
My kids had several soccer games there already. Nobody's died of
if they're aware of it.
Yeah, in fact,
It's still
I've got a
frozen.
I've got a bunch of new balls that they left.
But heat stroke doesn't happen until June
It's
and
not 80
July.
degrees yet.
There's no heat stroke when the temperature is 40 degrees.
Okay. Melinda?
Yeah, I was just going to share, I sit on Solon Township's Park and Recreation Committee. Solon Township has 3 parks. We have the Solon Beach Park, which is up on,
6:45.
yeah, thank you, yep. And what we're going to be doing there, it's really kind of exciting, they're going to house the longboats for the rowing club. It's a second team of rowing club. They have Veronica Valley Stage is the one group, and this is the second one. So they're going to store their boats there. They'll be launching from our Solon Township Park there. We have the playground right down in the village of Cedar, down by the tennis courts. And then we have our larger nature park, which is Black's Pond off of 651. Kind of a newly active committee. We've just always kind of had the parks, and now lots happened in Les Chambers, so hey, let's put a playground in or whatever. The township, so yeah, will help. So we're going to adopt this kind of a structure. We're going to put 2 or 3 people on the 3 parks and do some assessments of our parks. But we're doing a park cleanup in Solon. We're going to meet at the town hall there, right on the main drag. It's from 10 to 2 on the 14th of May. So if anybody wants to come and take a look at our parks or help clean up, we're going to do the recycling area in Cedar, which is used by 4 or 5 townships in that area. We'll be doing some cleanup there. Some people are going to kayak the river and see if there's any debris in the river there, going out to the lake. Some people will go look at relax and maybe do mostly an assessment that day. We want to open some trails up there too, and then like the playground area. So it's the 14th of May from 10 to 2 if anybody wants to come and help.
And where is it now?
The Cedar Town Hall in Cedar. Yeah.
Any other commissioner comments? Nothing out of me. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
One more second.
Did you have a comment or no? Motion? All right, okay. We are adjourned.
Yeah.
I could
So how significant is the damage?
I was doing some cutting.